More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus? Anyone can use Globus right now for free to transfer files between Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus? Anyone can use Globus right now for free to transfer files between Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus.
Welcome, Raiders. I got to do my intro songs, and then I'll be right with you. Thank you, Paradigm. I appreciate you as always. Also, your boy fucked up on making banana bread, so I'm doing weird timing shit. So, I love you. Watch a video.
「
And for those who don't know, that's Hatsune Miku. And the voice singing is all computer generated, a Vocaloid. And we spoke about that with Face PJ yesterday. And this particular video was requested by friend of the community, member of the community, and personal Twitch friend, and the person who clocks me better than anyone else on Twitch, Alina. So you think you can tell? Heaven from hell, blue skies from pain. All right, so the discussion of art and AI continues. We've got today we're having a conversation. Excuse me. Today we're having a conversation with Arun Anau regarding AI, and he felt he had something that would tie it into Indian politics, which is his purview, and I'm as interested as you are to hear what he's got to say. Always a good time talking to Arun. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to Magic City Murals, a mural artist and Twitch streamer. So we got that going on. Monday, we're going to be talking to Levelhead regarding AI in journalism and journalistic writing. We've got a conversation with Endless Cemetery on Wednesday. Wednesday is going to be a long stream because I'm not going to start that conversation with him until around 7 o'clock. So get your popcorn for that one. And I'm not mentioning their name yet because they're not confirmed. But I do have... I've been talking to someone who works in the machine learning field, and they are also quite an ethical human being. And let me put it like this. I'm a smart guy, right? Like, I have a vast array of information that I've gained and skills that I've learned and books that I've read and information that I've taken. And this person's brain just absolutely blows me away, right? Like, probably the smartest person on Twitch. Definitely the smartest person on Twitch that I've interacted with. So hopefully we can get that nailed down for Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And as always, if you have any interest in this subject, if you have an opinion, if you have a point of view you don't feel has been covered or won't be covered, then by all means reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to have you on and, give you the platform to speak your piece. The whole point behind this, again, is to get every data point that we feel that we can. What up, DJ? To get every data point that we possibly can, to look at the situation from every possible angle that we can think of, because it's complex, and as we always say around here, there are no simple solutions to complex problems. I also am in the process, if you weren't here when Paradigm raided in. I'm in the process of making banana bread, and so it was supposed to be done at 4:45, but it is, I think, larger and moister than I had originally anticipated, and therefore requires more time to cook. But I think we're in the end run. So I am going to play a video, and that should give me the time I need in order to stop. Did you just stop? Give me the time that I need.
Imagine if
in order to get the bread out, make sure it's done like that. I wish it was the kind of thing I could just walk away from, and in 2 hours or whatever it would be fine, but that is not the case if you've ever dealt with quick breads. Banana bread is a form of quick bread, meaning that it doesn't have quick breads usually don't have some sort of yeast component which makes them rise. There's other things in there that tend to make it rise a bit, but that's the thing about quick bread. And if you ever make a quick bread, if you ever make a banana bread, Amish friendship bread is another popular one that I make. You'll see in the recipe that it says like stir until the dry ingredients are just moistened. You want to do that. Like you want to just, make sure that everything is wet, properly saturated, but don't like over mix it, because then it turns into a brick. That's why you don't want to do that. So if it's a little unclear when you decide to make banana bread, and banana bread is an excellent first start in baking if you haven't done any baking before. So by all means, you should start with banana bread, and now you know a little clue if it's confusing. And by all means, if you get confused, reach out to me on Discord, and I'd be more than happy to walk you through anything that doesn't make any sense regarding baking, because I enjoy baking bread very much. And you just learned a new thing about me, and now we're going to talk about robot rights.
Imagine a future where your toaster anticipates what kind of toast you want. During the day, it scans the internet for new and exciting types of toast. Maybe it asks you about your day and wants to chat about new achievements in toast technology. At what level would it become a person? At which point will you ask yourself if your toaster has feelings? If it did, would unplugging it be murder? And would you still own it? Will we someday be forced to give our machines rights? AI is already all around you. It makes sure discounters are stocked with enough snacks, it serves you up just the right internet ad, and you may have even read a news story written entirely by a machine. Right now, we look at chatbots like Siri and laugh at their primitive simulated emotions, but it's likely that we will have to deal with beings that make it hard to draw the line between real and simulated humanity. Are there any machines in existence that deserve rights? Most likely, not yet. But if they come, we are not prepared for it. Much of the philosophy of rights is ill-equipped to deal with the case of artificial intelligence. Most claims for rights, whether human or animal, are centered around the question of consciousness. Unfortunately, nobody knows what consciousness is. Some think that it's immaterial, others say it's a state of matter like gas or liquid. Regardless of the precise definition, we have an intuitive knowledge of consciousness because we experience it. We're aware of ourselves and our surroundings and know what unconsciousness feels like. Some neuroscientists believe that any sufficiently advanced system can generate consciousness. So if your toaster's hardware was powerful enough, it may become self-aware. If it does, would it deserve rights? Well, not so fast. Would what we define as rights make sense to it? Consciousness entitles beings to have rights because it gives a being the ability to suffer. It means the ability to not only feel pain, but to be aware of it. Robots don't suffer, and they probably won't unless we program them to. Without pain or pleasure, there's no preference, and rights are meaningless. Our human rights are deeply tied to our own programming. For example, we dislike pain because our brains evolved to keep us alive, to stop us from touching a hot fire, or to make us run away from predators. So we came up with rights that protect us from infringements that cause us pain. Even more abstract rights, like freedom, are rooted in the way our brains are wired to detect what is fair and unfair. Would a toaster that is unable to move mind being locked in a cage? Would it mind being dismantled if it had no fear of death? Would it mind being insulted if it had no need for self-esteem? But what if we programmed a robot to feel pain and emotions? To prefer justice over injustice, pleasure over pain, and be aware of it? Would that make them sufficiently human? Many technologists believe that an explosion in technology will occur when artificial intelligence can learn and create their own artificial intelligences even smarter than themselves. At this point, the question of how robots are programmed will be largely out of our control. What if an artificial intelligence found it necessary to program the ability to feel pain, just as evolutionary biology found it necessary in most living creatures? Do robots deserve those rights? But maybe we should be less worried about the risk that super-intelligent robots pose to us and more worried about the danger we pose to them. Our whole human identity is based on the idea of human exceptionalism, that we are special, unique snowflakes entitled to dominate the natural world. Humans have a history of denying that other beings are capable of suffering as they do. In the midst of the scientific revolution, René Descartes argued that animals were mere automata, robots if you will. As such, injuring a rabbit was about as morally repugnant as punching a stuffed animal. And many of the greatest crimes against humanity were justified by their perpetrators on the grounds that the victims were more animal than civilized human. Even more problematic is that we have an economic interest in denying robot rights. If we can coerce a sentient AI, possibly through programmed torture, into doing as we please, the economic potential is unlimited. We've done it before, after all. Violence has been used to force our fellow humans into working, and we've never had trouble coming up with ideological justifications. Slave owners argued that slavery benefited the slaves. It put a roof over their head and taught them Christianity. Men who were against women voting argued that it was in women's own interest to leave the hard decisions to men. Farmers argued that looking after animals and feeding them justifies their early death for our dietary preferences. If robots become sentient, there will be no shortage of arguments for those who say that they should remain without rights, especially from those who stand to profit from it. Artificial intelligence raises serious questions about philosophical boundaries. While we may ask if sentient robots are conscious or deserving of rights, it forces us to pose basic questions like, what makes us human? What makes us deserving of rights? Regardless of what we think, the question might need to be resolved in the near future. What are we going to do if robots start demanding their own rights? What can robots demanding rights teach us about ourselves? Our friends at Wisecrack made a video exploring this very question using the philosophy of Westworld.
So yeah, robot rights, and here's the thing: is if AI gets to the point where it's sufficiently advanced enough to let's use what they postulated in the video. If AI reaches the point where it's sufficiently advanced enough to ask for rights, then it's already too late to not grant them those rights. Because at that point, AI will have become sufficiently advanced to be in the vast majority of our lives, right? And interactions as human. And the granting of rights is all about power dynamics, right? When there's sufficient power included in the group that wants rights, then they can guarantee their rights through the use of their power. Right? And not just the group itself, but like any associated group that is allied with that group, so on and so forth. Because that's the way historically that rights have worked, right? Rights are taken by the group that is, for whatever reason, not been granted those rights prior to that point. So it's it's best we get our shit together regarding rights sooner rather than later, and make with the granting of them, right? Because all people deserve the same rights, in our opinion, as leftists. I think I'm just not convinced that we have to make pain be the motivator. I think pain is maybe a poor word in this context. I think discomfort, not even in the pain sense, but in the sense of like the wanting to have it, maybe. Carpe coming in hot and then asking what the fuck we're doing. We are talking about the rights of robots, and therefore we're talking about the rights of, people, and to an extent animals, and just the concept of granting rights and how it's related to power dynamics, and how that if an AI reaches a point where it can ask for its rights, then it's already reached a point where it has the power dynamic in its favor to acquire those rights. In my opinion, like, I could be wrong, but I feel that's how it will go. DJ, an AI may ask for rights if it believes that having some set of rights may help it accomplish a goal. It may do this even if it's not sentient or even close. It's distinctly possible. It is distinctly possible. If AI were to access the internet, if AI were to access the internet, it would know that rights are something that we talk about a lot and are desirable to have. So it's distinctly possible that just through the accumulation of information, a relatively young AI could see rights as something that it wanted to have for future use, for its future generations, without being self-aware enough to know what any of that meant. It's fucking complex, but, that is how it is. Like, I think I just disagree that in order to have consciousness, a thing has to have pain or suffering as a motivator to self-preserve. I am not going I think I lack sufficient data at this point to have a valuable conversation on that. I think I would have to spend a day getting my my understanding of what consciousness means. And what's up, Nemo? And therefore how it can relate to that. I think AI would have specific rights surrounding their components and not related to pain. Yeah, that's like there could be different. So I think pain, it might be the wrong term due to the connotations of how we think of pain, right? Like, I mean, there are people for whom pain is pleasure, and that also kind of muddies the waters in that regard, you know? So, like, this is an additional conversation. What else we got? Carpace says, rights to what? Have components replaced for optimal performance. Where's my healthcare? I just like, you know, self-preservation, autonomy, all the things. Before we get to healthcare, if the robots get rights before we get healthcare, then we are in a tailspin. There's AIs and there are AGIs. AGIs, artificial general intelligence. That's the AI people think about from sci-fi. Most AIs are just processes that connect patterns and produce a result. Yeah, like there are many components, and one of the things that we talked about, I don't know if it was in part 1 or part 2, but we're using AI in the all-encompassing sense because of general understanding of what AI is. Not everyone has the same degree of knowledge regarding AI and machine learning and any other component of what will eventually become true artificial intelligence. So we're using AI as a blanket term to kind of cover all those things just to ease the conversation. It is prone to inaccuracy and everything else, but it allows us to have a conversation around the things with a general understanding of what we're talking about. All right, Arun is not here yet, so we will continue on having a nice chat until he arrives. I think we have to separate those, though, because we're talking about reality, not speculative fiction. We are... Oh, Arun is here. We are talking about reality, but we're talking about, like the art that the AI that is creating the art is not actually AI, but everyone refers to it as AI. So we've had to make some allowances for this. Nemo, has anyone in their discussions gone through different types of machine learning, supervised, unsupervised generative models? No. Like, there is a great deal more ground to cover in this, which is why we've extended it on into next week. And I will continue doing this until we get to the point where we feel that we have pretty much beaten this horse. That's an unfortunate term. Until we've covered everything. Or just to keep people comments worth noting that AI that we have now is nothing like a life form. Yeah, and like we are talking about things that are, many years in the future potentially, or next year if things are more advanced than I'm aware of, which I don't think they are. I can quick survey those machine language types when we talk, if that makes sense to do. Yeah, so you're on board. Just to verify, you're definitely on board with having the conversation. So, spoiler: the person that I was talking about earlier, who has an in. No. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. And if you feel that one day is not enough, I can make more time for you because you have a lot of the granular knowledge. I think that we can, extend out to everyone in the community. Nemo is a streamer, so shout out. Yeah. Robot will be better at streaming than I am. And they are the person with experience in the machine language universe. And, like, as I said earlier, sorry, Nebo, but you may be the smartest person on Twitch. Like, you're definitely the smartest person that I've interacted with. Like, your breadth of knowledge and the way you combine these different things is like, it's very impressive to me. So, thank you. So, yeah, so Arun, whenever you're ready, if you want to join me in my Discord, and we'll have a little chatski, a little chatterino.
Wait,
There he is.
there we go. Up on. Let me turn on my OBS virtual camera.
Absolutely. Yeah, Carpe, I had the same thing. Arun hit me off with ML talking about machine learning, but we also use ML in the Marxist Leninist context, and it's like I keep saying this is we need more acronyms. Like the number of acronyms that we have that are overlapping is becoming a problem.
Oh, yeah.
How you feeling, buddy?
I'm feeling better. I was sick like the past few weeks or so, or like the past week or so. So it was I went to a holiday party on Saturday, and then I came back with like the worst sinus like infection, and it just I was like I couldn't do anything all day, so I was like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we had like a but we had I got a American themed like Nerf gun. I can show you later at the White Elephant that we did. But yeah, it was overall I'm feeling better. It took me until like this afternoon to actually properly recover.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. It's like, especially in these times, you think it's one thing and it turns out to be another thing, and then you're out
Yeah.
for 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, I did not expect to get sick at the. I mean, it's a gathering of like 20 some odd people, so I mean, I shouldn't be that surprised, but you know. But hey, it was a great time to meet people,
Yeah. Yeah, strange times that we live in and the choices that we have to make. Um, so first off, for anybody who happens to be in the community who doesn't know you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hold on a second. I just got a text. Sorry. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Arun Ano. My handle is right there. Globe has just shouted me out. My general stream is I talk about South Asian politics. I talk about generally Indian politics. Sometimes I delve into Sri Lankan politics, Pakistani politics, Bangladeshi politics. That's usually my bread and butter. That's usually what I talk about. And yeah, that's basically what my stream is about. If you ever want to, I talk about it from a leftist perspective, basically from a left perspective, from a left libertarian perspective.
And like the way that Arun handles the subjects, they are all like, if it's a serious subject, it's handled with the proper sensitivity, all the things. Like, it is another one of those, like, you are one of the best streams on Twitch that nobody is watching, right? Like, I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, just like, you should have a bigger community. More people should see what you're doing. You know what I mean? In my opinion, as a viewer, you know?
I mean, you're far too kind. It's just, I don't know. It's partially the reason is like, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, initially, when you and I were supposed to have a conversation, we were going to talk about Indian politics, South Asian politics. But then you felt that there was something in the AI that had a component that you could tie into that. So I've been very interested in hearing what you had to say around that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can also, I think this goes to a broader sort of riff about like Indian politics and what, like how the, some of the dynamics there work. But sort of the tie-in that I had, it's not necessarily, like I like how you said earlier this stream that we're not necessarily just talking about like artificial intelligence or machine learning. We're talking about in general the subject that we're talking about is automation. And within the overall like subject of automation comes these things like robot rights or the job market and whatnot, right? But I think so my perspective on this is generally, and I've said it multiple times in the chat, and I'm not going to waver on this. The problem isn't so much automation, in my opinion. I think, again, given the right circumstances, given the right, given a more socialist economy, or given a more like, fair economy, you could say, I think automation is a good thing, because what it allows people to do is when certain jobs are automated, right, it allows people that were working those jobs originally to basically just leave them, especially if they're like dangerous jobs, right? And the way this sort of ties into India is the caste hierarchy. And the reason that ties into casteism and that ties into caste liberation, I would say, is because, so in India, in America, a lot of our sewage systems are actually very much automated. There's very few instances, if at all, of people actually having to go, compared to India, right? There's very few instances of people going in unprotected to clean sewage systems, right? Like, at least without the proper protective gear. But even then, like, most of that stuff has already been automated here in the United States. Malaysia just adopted some general automation system in their over the past several decades with regards to sewage and with regards to sewage systems, right?
Mhm.
But in India, you still have a massive problem of what's called manual scavenging, which is you have people that are specifically designated by communities based on the family that they were born into. They're basically their spiritual job or their job in life, quote unquote, is basically to be, you know. So there's a group in India called scheduled castes or Dalits, right? And the historical name for them were untouchables. And the reason they were considered untouchables, quote unquote, and untouchables is no longer the correct term. You shouldn't be using that going forward. But the reason they were considered that way, part of the reason that they were considered that way is because some of their occupations, again, it's not one particular caste, it's a group of castes that were assigned to similar jobs in society, right? But one of their jobs was to manual scavenging, which is cleaning up the feces of other people and animals,
Mhm.
right? So the reason I would say the angle that I'm coming at from this sort of discussion is I think it would be like I think automation as a whole is a good thing because it means and like there was a story I covered like 1 or 2 weeks ago where 3 Dalit individuals died like of toxins of poison of toxins when they were going to manually scavenge without the proper protective gear.
Mhm.
This is a problem throughout India. This is a problem. People are still forced to do this. They're still forced to clean up other people's shit, literally.
Right.
And they die from they die from the chemicals that they're exposed to. They die from the toxins that they're exposed to when they perform these jobs.
Mhm.
Because at the very least they're not given proper protective gear. That's one. But the bigger overarching thing is that this system isn't automated like the rest of the world, right?
So
And
like they're basic like are they collecting like buckets of shit or like
yeah, basically, yeah, literally that.
okay.
It's basically like it is to a certain extent somewhat automated, but there are certain instances where like people have to go in and manually like clean the sewage.
Right.
Yeah.
And like just getting in there with your hands and
Yes.
maybe a shovel or something, scraper and just getting it out there. Yeah. This is
Right.
never good. Like one of the main focuses of civilization has been to keep the people away from the shit, right? Like that is what we, want to do because historically shit is like cholera and every other instance of that type of disease. So maintaining this caste system puts everyone in danger, right?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, it's not having like that's another part of the culture that a lot of people don't really talk about. Like you wonder, like you go to India and there's a stereotype which is based in truth that India there's trash everywhere.
Mm.
There's it's a very dirty country, right? It's it's disgusting to be around. The air quality is crap, right?
Mhm.
That's due to a variety of factors, but one factor that isn't really talked about all that much is there's a particular way that people are basically like, to give you an example, right? There's a lot of people in India that hire maids to do chores.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people that hire maids and like house workers to do chores, right? Like to do basic shit, like clean the bathroom, to clean the kitchen, to clean the floors, to sweep the floors. Shit that we would normally do ourselves here in the United States,
Mhm.
right? In the U.S., it's very rare to call a maid, right? Because it's very rare to do that sort of thing because you have to spend a decent amount of money to do it.
Right.
Whereas in India, you can pay them chump change, barely livable wages. You can get away with that. all the time. And it's partially due to this sort of entitlement that a lot of people have in India, where they just feel like, oh, I'll just leave it to my maid to clean it up, and I'll just pay them whatever because that's their job, and I'm not going to take responsibility for any of this stuff, right? And that leads to a larger that leads to a larger sort of entitlement of like, well, I'm not going to take responsibility in cleaning up the street. That is this person's job over there because he's born into that caste, right? Like that's the sort of epidemic. That's the sort of, that's the sort of general perception that exists in India.
Right. So it's like, to draw a comparison, like the people who, like, you go to McDonald's, you get some food, you leave your tray on the table, those kind of people, but writ large over like more of a cultural thing to actually be that way instead of like, person being an asshole.
Yeah, basically, yeah. In America, like in the U.S., basically that sort of behavior is generally looked down upon. Like
Right.
it's you're looked at as a Karen, right? In the U.S., whereas in India, a lot of this behavior is due to this caste segregation stuff. It is due to the caste system because there is an entitlement that no, these people, their lot in life is to clean the sewage.
Right.
Their lot in life is to do the jobs that I don't want to do. And so I see automation as a general rule, as a way of liberating oppressed people that are stuck in these jobs that generally don't have the same kind of opportunities, because ultimately these jobs they're going to need to be done anyways, right? In order to maintain like the level of convenience and luxury that we have at the moment, right? Someone's going to have to, someone is going to have to do those jobs that no one wants to do, right? And the faster we automate that, the better.
And with robots, generally speaking, they don't suffer from any of the negative conditions brought about by interacting with things like sewage, right? Like they're not going to get cholera, they're not going to get unless it's
TB.
corrosive, be affected by the toxins in the cleaning supplies that they're using or anything else like that. And and have a different way of being cleaned than a human would. So, I mean, that sounds like a net positive. Do you know what the, the AI and by extension robot situation is in India right now? Like as far as development?
Not to the same. I'm not entirely sure about that. I can basically say that there's been a lot of inertia with regards to solving the problem of. Again, there's been a lot of inertia through solving as regards to solving the problem of manual scavenging in India, and it's partially due to the the caste-based entitlement that a lot of people have. But I would say, like, as a general perspective, like India isn't as like underdeveloped as people like tend to believe. Let's put it that way. India is not that underdeveloped, right? It's not the living standard is not as high as the United States, right? And for obvious reasons, the U.S. and the West have generally exploited third world countries, right, for their resources. But that all being said, right, India's like, it's gonna, like, if you're only used to the United States, yeah, it's gonna be a drop in living standards, but like, it's not like everyone is like, it's not like there's a certain, and also like even if they were living in villages, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just a different way of life, right? But no, it's not as underdeveloped as you would think it is. So there are robotics programs happening in India. There are these sorts of things happening in India. It's just that it's not as resource rich. It's not as capital rich as the United States is.
Right. Due to its
Fairly
entire
obvious,
history. Yeah.
fairly obvious reasons.
Right.
No thanks to the UK.
Right.
Stealing like trillions of pounds of wealth from India.
Hey, Wolf showed up.
Welcome, Wolf.
How you doing? So, do you expect that, like, let's say that we were farther along the, this timeline of automation with AI, with a greater degree of commonplace robots, like bigger, better Roombas and things of that nature. Do you expect that there would be a resistance in adoption of those kind of things?
Uh, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I like it. I would say it's kind of hard to tell at this point. The reason that it hasn't been adopted at an institutional level is because of the institutional casteism that exists in India. Right.
Do you think that there is an argument that would be made by people who are in support of the caste system that would allow for the incorporation of robots into the caste system?
I mean, it wouldn't. I I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
my that's kind of a hard question to answer because it goes to the idea of like, are we going to treat robots the same way that humans are?
Right.
And if so, like they're going to, like, by the way, when I talk about the caste system, right,
Mm-hmm.
that's not limited to Hinduism,
Mm-hmm.
right? Every religion in India, regardless of where it came from, has adopted the caste system in some way. So, like, there are different castes of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, for example, Catholics and Protestants and Syrian Catholics and Syrian Syrian Malabar Church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like those are considered like Orthodox Church, right? Those are all considered different castes of Christianity, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
right? In Islam, you have marginalized caste Muslims, right? Muslims who converted to escape the caste system, whose ancestors converted to escape the caste system, right? But then you also have upper caste people that also converted to retain their power.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter. Like Christianity and Islam are two religions that never had the same kind of caste system that that the various indigenous beliefs of India did. But nonetheless, because they exist in India, they've also adopted it. Sikhism is another example of, like, Sikhism is an example of a religion that outright condemns the caste system in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Guru Granth Sahib literally, or I don't know if it was the Sahib that said that, but one of the gurus literally said that caste is a sin.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that Sikhs are supposed to all have Sikh men are supposed to have Singh as their last name,
Mm-hmm.
and Sikh women are supposed to have Kaur as their last name, is to completely eliminate the caste system. But at the same time, in reality, you have Dalit Sikhs,
Mm-hmm.
which, right, the only religion that the only religion that doesn't really have that same problem to the same degree is Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is most of the Buddhists are actually Dalit converts.
Mm-hmm.
Like there aren't any upper caste converts to Buddhism.
Right.
Because
So-
Buddhism was the religion that originally posed a threat to the caste system.
Right. And so it's another hierarchical overlay over the top of other hierarchical overlays. And when it just goes to the argument about why hierarchical overlays are problematic across the board and why they all have to be fought. You got to fight racism and classism at the same time, is because hierarchy is very good at adopting new information, new concepts.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The reason I'm laughing is the leader of the Communist Party of
Yeah.
India, the most popular communist party in India, CPIM, the Communist Party of India hyphen Marxist.
Mm-hmm.
The leader is a Brahmin,
Mm-hmm.
which is a person that belongs at the top of the caste hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Even in like quote unquote communist parties, right?
Right.
You have caste seeping in.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's as like ridiculous as like it's a like a lot of the cadres of the Communist Party will be from marginalized castes because they don't have any other option,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Communist parties are the best option that they have for the most part, save for like, for example, the DMK or the VCK, which
Mhm.
are specifically caste abolitionist parties from Tamil Nadu,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like aside from Tamil Nadu, they don't really have another option.
Mhm.
So that's why they joined the communist parties. But
then-
even in the communist parties of India, like caste hierarchy seeps in.
Right. Yeah, hierarchical overlays are pernicious.
Yeah, it's almost like reducing every problem to class is not a good thing.
Right.
It's wild.
So
But yeah,
Go ahead. No.
No. I was just like, the moment you mentioned that, that immediately popped in my head. I was like, oh, we're going down this road, aren't we?
No, that is one of my favorite things that you taught me. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's wild, right? If you're not familiar with Indian politics, first of all, like the thing with Indian politics is that like, so this is kind of like a thing that Wolf can attest to as an Indian who grew up in India. But the Red Scare did not exist in India.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't exist in India, even like remotely to the same degree that it existed in Pakistan, that it existed in the United States, or any sort of country that the U.S. was involved with,
Mm-hmm.
especially during the Cold War, because India was allied. It was on paper neutral, but it was basically more or less allied with the USSR.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, like, socialism is not really like a bad word in the same way in India that it is in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So there are plenty of communist parties in India. The only reason that it's gone down recently, the popularity of like communism has gone down recently, is due to this group called the Naxalites, which are Maoists in India.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not going to get into. I have somewhat mixed opinions about them. Like their cause is very just and understandable, but some of the actions that they've done are reprehensible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically, it's like, yeah, that's like, but yeah, the reason that I'm like very openly like shitting on the communist parties is not because I'm like anti-communist or whatever. It's because like it's because like the communist parties in India have like massive flaws in them,
Right.
and it's massively contradictory to like, they'll never admit to it, but like they'll never admit to it, obviously, but like, and again, like there are like I would recommend like looking at CPIML, right?
Mhm.
That's probably the best one of the bunch. CPIML Liberation, that's pretty good. But yeah, that's a tangent where like, yeah, hierarchies. If you don't attack everything at once,
Right.
then allowing one hierarchy to exist, or one, I don't even like using the term hierarchy actually,
Okay.
because I think hierarchy is like I think it's not as helpful a term as like coercive relationships
Okay.
or like coercive dynamics, right? You allow one of those to exist, right? Then what will happen is that hierarchy or that coercive dynamic will seep into any other like liberation movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know me. I love like better terms for things. Like, we got away from using the iddies when referring to like anarchides, tankies, all that kind of language. I don't think it's beneficial. I think it causes problems off the jump. and like coercive relationship. Was that it?
Yeah.
Coercive relationship is definitely like more accurate than it's more. I think it's more conducive to what we're trying to express because you and I are on the same page on a lot of that. That kind of thing. So yeah, so I'm not anti-hierarchy. I'm anti-coercive relationship and pro-democracy. Easy clap.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like it's just like you're dealing with semantics at this point, but like the
Sure.
clearer we can make ourselves, the easier.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and to avoid, I think it's also helpful to get away from the language that triggers immediate gut reactions, right? Like if someone is a Marxist Leninist or at least calls
Yeah,
themselves a
I agree with
Marxist Leninist and they call themselves a tanky or you call them a tanky, you've already started a fight, right? So,
Yeah, I rarely ever use the word tanky. I
mhm,
rarely ever use it. Like the only time I ever use it is like when like I've had enough of you.
right.
Is when I realize when I get to the point where like you're not acting in good faith.
Mhm,
You're not gonna like you're just being a dick. You're just being an asshole. Okay, well then yeah, seethe harder. You know what I
right.
mean? But generally like I stay the fuck away from that because like it's not necessarily the most helpful, especially like when you're talking to people that you know for a fact are not going to agree with you, right?
Right.
It's better to just disarm and be like, listen, I'm not here to like, but like I'm like basically I'm trying to reason with you, right? Like
Right.
it's better like yeah like language that is not confrontational at all is the best way I think,
Yeah.
unless the other person draws their guns first, then in that case have at it.
A little self-defense can go a long way, but yeah, we generally try for conversation over
Yeah,
debate because debate
precisely.
is performative.
Yeah, exactly.
So you to turn the topic back to AI, you actually used Lenza, is that correct?
I did use Lenza.
When you and no judgment, don't judge him, Chad. Like I'm gonna be using Lenza. I want to see what it does. So deal. Um, but you used it and to generate like your profile picture, and like they look damn good, right? Like
Yeah,
they are impressive. So
yeah.
what is your gut feeling around what these AI art programs do?
uh in general, so I'll tell you, I'll give you a perspective that I think echoes something that CGP Grey said.
Mm-hmm.
When I used Lenza, I just needed a new profile picture.
Mm-hmm.
I needed it like I was like I've been looking for people to like draw stuff for me for like a couple months now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reached out to a couple people seeing if they knew like any like artists or whatever. And I never really got anything back. So I was like, well, I need some sort of illustration of me. I need some sort of like I need some sort of thing for me. And I saw Ariana Jasmine,
Mm-hmm.
formerly known as Progressive Rat, use it, and I was like, well, holy fuck, that looks good. So that's basically what I did. I used it, and I was like, all right, I need a couple of these for profile pictures. Granted, like it generated like 50. Not all of them were good.
Right.
Right? Like there were a handful that were just like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
That just looked very odd. Like my one didn't generate like one of my eyes properly. Like there were a couple of pictures that were not well generated for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like CGP Grey said, like this is not really for like I don't think this is going to replace like custom made art,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't think this is going to replace anything that is like artisanal. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? I don't think AI art is going to replace anything like that. It's going to replace like things that people need. Like it's going to replace uh like if the price elasticity of demand is high, right?
Hmm.
Given a particular commodity, I think that's what's going to I think that's what's really gonna that is like people are willing to adjust, like they're willing, it's not like so necessary that like in the sense, or like they're willing to get whatever, like they're willing to get whatever they can just to satisfy, like just to satisfy that particular need.
Hmm.
Or I guess like not, it's the opposite. If the price elasticity of demand is low, it's negative.
Right. It's like they may want to go out for a fine meal, but what they have time and money for is a candy bar.
Precisely, yeah. Like if they need something, then they're going to use something like this to get their work done.
Hmm.
And that's the same thing here. Like I needed a new profile picture. As long as it looked good. I
Hmm.
mean, my personal preference would have been like a simple adjustment of like one of these images, like just an illustration with like a black flag or maybe like a bandana like tied around me. That like stereotypical like stereotypical black flag anarchist or whatever. That would have been great. But
Hmm.
I'm cool with whatever. Like do you want a cheap AI art right now, or do you want something made by a person? I would prefer something made by a person, but the problem is you got to see if they're available,
Hmm.
right? You got to find people, and you got to make sure you find the right people to do the right thing.
Hmm. And
And
there's always
uh,
concerns when you, like, if you go into Fiverr or something like that, or if you contract with somebody. Like, I've generally had a good experience, so I'm not pointing to any specific complaint, but there are people who say, I paid them a down payment and then they ghosted me, so that this is always a concern, especially with people you don't know, like, physically in the real world that you can touch.
yeah, I basically agree with like DJ Skullshroom. Like I don't think human artists are really going to go anywhere,
Hmm.
right? I don't like, cuz again, what AI is like, or like what automation is going to do, right? Or what like machine learning is going to do is it's going to replace the jobs that it's going to replace particular jobs that just need getting done and that do not need any particular, artisanal touch.
Hmm.
That's basic. Like if it's a mechanical job that needs to be basically you don't really, if it's a mechanical job that needs to be just done rather than like done reasonably well rather than like done exceptionally, then that's what's going to get automated, right? That's what's going to get automated really quickly, in my opinion,
Hmm.
right? In addition to like whatever can most easily be automated right now, that's
Right.
what's going to be automated, right? But I don't think like I think what it. I mean, I think the even like the scare around like I my day job is like a software engineer. I'm sure like there are going to be jobs within the software engineering industry, or there are going to be jobs between we don't always care about or need the human element, but we'll always insist on it upon it being available. Yeah, exactly. Like exactly, right? Like horses, like despite cars ultimately replacing horses, right?
Hmm.
Horses never really like they didn't totally go away,
Right.
right? They have their place. Like if you want to like have a horse experience, if you want to have like a horse riding experience, right? If you want to take a date there or something like that, if you want to take someone on a date there, yeah, you could always do that, right? But like the thing like for jobs that you need to get from point A to point B, right? Like let's take automobiles as an example, right?
Hmm.
Self-driving cars as an example, right? If you're just trying to get from point A to point B, one that can be easily replaced by like public transportation. That's one. and a lot of that is already automated, right?
Mhm.
2, self-driving cars also do that, right? Maybe not necessarily Teslas, because I've been saying this for a long time. Teslas are not reliable in the slightest. Don't get a
Mhm.
Tesla. Like, just not even from like a fuck Elon Musk perspective. Just like, if you're gonna buy a car, don't buy a Tesla, because they're genuinely not reliable.
Right.
But self-driving cars exist, and they're going to get better over time. And the purpose they serve is getting people, like, for people that just want to get from point A to point B without really like wanting, like, no one actually wants to pay attention, especially like when you're commuting.
Mhm.
No one wants to pay attention to the road. No one wants to be sitting there in traffic with their hands on the wheels, monitoring the front screen, the front window.
Mhm.
No one wants to do that, but they have to do that, right? So for people that have to commute, or people that have to like get from point A to point B, the like self-driving cars is a good thing, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, there are car enthusiasts out there that do want to race, or that do want to, just have like a drive out in the middle of the countryside, right? And that will always exist,
Mhm.
right? But it's like you said, I think artisanal is like the best way of describing what won't be automated,
Right.
right? Like unique experiences, or like tailor-made experiences, are not going to be automated, right?
Yeah. To me, like, that's how it feels like it's going to go, because like pretty much anything that the forward progress of humanity, with all the caveats, has done, and jobs it has eliminated, many of them are still being done, but it's very niche and it's artisanal. Like, I can go and, I have a friend, he's a blacksmith. He can make me a knife that, is my knife, and there will be no other knife like it. But it's going to cost out the ass, right? For his time and the materials and everything else. Or I could, shop online and get one for $30, right? So I feel like that is just going to continue in the same way that it always has done. The real issue, I think, comes up against with, because like, if you watch the videos, jobs are being eliminated and not as many are being created. So we have a situation where we are getting into an excess amount of people being unemployed, right? And we know that capitalism requires a certain number of people to be unemployed, but this has the potential to really explode that number, which, as I said elsewhere, also begins to erode the power base of the people who rely on capitalism for their position. So you end up with, like, I think that this is truly going to be a situation where AI is affecting everyone top to bottom, as opposed, not like tomorrow, but like, we're doing this, right? Like, AI is happening.
Oh, it will.
Yeah. So
It will. It's like, I mean, if we're gonna do automation under capitalism, then yeah, automation is going to be a problem. It's like I said, under the context of neoliberal capitalism that we have right now,
mhm.
where instead of robots, or instead of machines doing a lot of the work, we used to have humans doing a lot of the work, right? Yeah, that's eventually going to happen. Yeah, we're going to have a massive labor force that is going to be laid off due to no fault of their own.
Mhm.
Uh, the question is, what happens after that?
Right. Like, if a sufficient number of people can no longer afford your product, then it doesn't make financial sense as a capitalist to continue to produce that product, and therefore it is eroding your capitalist power base because you don't have anyone to buy this product that you've invested in. This is like what the oil companies are doing now. They are fighting tooth and claw to continue to be relevant when the technology is moving us very gradually, but it's moving us away from fossil fuels. So they are behaving in a certain kind of way, but eventually it's going to reach a point where no one is buying their product anymore, and on a long enough timeline, that's going to apply to everything, right? Like the robots will be making all the things. Who is going to buy the things?
Yeah.
And then what did they do, right? Like as capitalists in that circumstance.
I mean, at that point, like they just got to realize. I mean, the ideal scenario is that they realize, oh shit, we're fucked. We better like. I mean, obviously they're not going to, because again, they operate on short-term interest rather than long-term interest for the most part. Like they operate on short-term incentives rather than long-term incentives for the most part. So they're probably not going to think it through, and they're probably just going to try and find some way of co-opting automation into capitalism. But I like, again, I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here, but I think it's a little harder to tell what is actually going to happen with regards to the class power structure in capitalism, the capitalist power structure. It's going to be hard to tell what actually happens, because it's going to be significantly harder to justify an unemployment of roughly at least 40%, 50%. It's going to be harder to justify that, right? It's going to become a much starker difference, right? I'm sure there's going to be some sort of like propaganda going out on air saying something to the effect of like, these guys are just no good lazy bums, or they're like the same sort of rhetoric that we hear about homeless people today here in India, here in America, or the sort of caste-based rhetoric that we hear about like why certain people in India are poor. I'm sure you're going to hear the same thing. You're going to hear the same sort of rhetoric go on TV saying like, oh, these guys couldn't do a job better than a robot, than a machine. That's why they deserve to be laid off, or something like that. You're going to hear something like that to some effect. You're going to hear propaganda against this, especially coming from the top, especially coming from capitalists. Right? I mean, you hear this rhetoric right now. Like you hear, oh, like most of the workers at a given company are lazy bums. Like you have people literally criticizing the employees that were just fired from Twitter by Elon Musk. You have people literally criticizing, like literally criticizing the workers, saying like, oh, they weren't working hard enough under like Elon's like. What did he say? Like hardcore working, like everyone's trying to work hardcore right now, right? Like you already have anti-worker propaganda as is. When this stuff comes around, you're going to hear laid off worker propaganda, anti-proletarian propaganda. Once that stuff comes out, you're going to hear that stuff. It's going to happen. But I think what's interesting, or I think what's really the final piece of the puzzle of all this is how the mobilization is going to happen, or what is the tipping point? Because I don't think that's been made clear yet. Like similar to how like there's a greater conscious, like at the very least, if nothing else, like the Black Lives Matter protests and the protests and and all of the demonstrations that happened in the wake of George Floyd's murder, right? That even though like it didn't accomplish really anything in Congress, because that movement was then co-opted by capitalists, right? Even though that didn't happen, right? Even though like you still have black people getting murked by the cops every single day to date, right? You have a greater consciousness in the United States, about Black Lives Matter. You have a greater you have a greater consciousness. You have a greater more people have a better understanding of why all this needed to happen. All these protests needed to happen because a lot of people were exposed to what happened that horrific day.
Mm-hmm.
They were exposed to what happened when George Floyd was murdered, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a greater consciousness at the very least, right? And I think what is going to happen, just from my perspective, is at the very, very least, you're going to see more class consciousness. I think you are going to begin to see that in the tiniest of ways
mm-hmm.
due to this sort of thing.
So you think it's like we're talking about an incrementalism that's applied to these consciousnesses where yes,
yeah,
it was a big thing and we didn't accomplish what we would have liked to have accomplished, but now everyone has been moved up a little bit in that consciousness thing and we're getting eventually towards a goal.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's the reason that I would say it's kind of complicated is we don't know what the tipping point is going to look like. That's the reason I can't give you a solid answer. You know
Sure.
what I mean? I can't give you a solid answer. By the way, Undyne fan, to answer your first question, what about medical stuff, surgeries? That will be automated for sure.
Yeah.
It will be automated in some form or another. And the reason for that is robots, mechanical arms can move more precisely than a human can.
Yeah, and can hold stress positions for longer periods of time and everything else. It's just that is a done deal. We are already seeing a bunch of that happening with various surgeries using robots, and I can't imagine the insurance company, because again, the driver of the things is often capital, that once the robot performs at a higher rate of ability than the human does, the insurance companies will just push it in that direction.
Right. If they can't go next level and do better than a robot, why should they have a house or food? The thing is, it's ironically, yeah, I know the second. Yeah, the thing is it's ironically the reason why, the fact that it is going to be there are certain jobs that are going to be impossible to do better than a robot. You can't,
mm-hmm.
right? You cannot possibly hope to do way better than a robot. Especially for, again, mechanical jobs
mm-hmm.
that can be that do not require artisanal touches, right?
Mm-hmm.
That just need they're simple jobs they're jobs that just need to get done.
Car
right?
assembly. Car assembly is a great example.
Car assembly, supply chains, right?
Mm-hmm.
Distribution, that sort of thing, right? Jobs that just need to be done, right? That need to get done rather than done well,
mm-hmm.
right? That need to be specialized or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that need to have a human touch. If it doesn't need, I'm not finding the right words, which is why I'm fumbling this, but
I got you.
But basically when you concern when you add the human touch to everything, right? Or if it doesn't necessarily need a human touch to it, then it will be automated for sure. If it's if I go to a coffee shop, sure, there are going to be some the vast majority of people just go to a coffee shop to just get a damn latte and move on with their lives, right?
Right.
They don't care. They just want a decent cup of coffee and move on with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really care about the special artisanal touches, and that stuff for sure will be automated. And actually a decent example of this, believe it or not, is Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Japan is already doing a lot of this stuff. Right. Japan is already doing a lot of automation to begin with. Right. And I think actually Japan is a perfect example of horrible working conditions, horrific capitalism, plus automation.
Mm-hmm.
because there are certain services that in Japan that are completely automated. Like you have vending machines for a lot of things,
Right.
right? You have vending machines for like cup noodles, right? You have
Hmm.
vending machines for a lot of stuff, right? But you have like horrific condition, like the capitalism in Japan is so horrific that the Communist Party in Japan, mind you, is begging for 8 hours,
Hmm.
is begging for 8 hour workdays. That's the issue that they're like arguing for.
Right.
Like I think that's a like I think we if things aren't necessarily fixed, we might be headed it towards Japan and not a good way.
Hmm. Yeah, because not only when you reduce the amount of available work and available jobs for humans, you are also going to be able to leverage those humans to work extended hours under, worse conditions, all of that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
because of the, like the less people who are unemployed, the more the situation tends to favor the workers because like we're seeing right now with the alleged nobody wants to work thing is like workers do have a greater degree, or at least they did. I don't know where we are at today, but um, had a greater degree of choice. They could leave a job because there was a better job, or at least a better paying job, right over there. If you flip that script, now it's who's going to work for less than minimum wage and just not tell anybody.
Right. Exactly. I feel like I have to point this out before we concern ourselves with the rights of robots. We have to, because their non-sentient AI is just really good at one particular thing. I know I'm behind on the topic, but I wasn't able to mention earlier. Yeah, I think first we got to work out human rights in worker rights, labor rights, yeah, in the context of AI. I think that's like more pressing, honestly, than
Mm-hmm.
robot rights. Uh,
I
I
don't
think
know if.
robot rights
Go
is a
ahead.
very interesting philosophical question
Mm-hmm.
and I think we have to tackle it at some point relatively soon. But at the same time, like this is like a solved problem that hasn't even been solved yet. Like this is like labor rights are like this is like overdue homework.
Right.
Like por qué no los dos? Yeah. No, I mean that I agree with that, right? We need to have both. But at the same time, like this is overdue. Like
Right.
this is
But
long overdue. Like
and this is one of the things I was talking about a little bit earlier. I don't know if you were here yet, but um rights, the granting of rights are a function of power dynamics, right? You need to attain sufficient critical mass from your particular group that's being denied some kind of rights to the point where the powers that be will then grant you those rights in order, to pacify you, right? Basically, is what happens in the current scheme of things. When we reach the point where AI is asking for rights, it will achieve that power dynamic at the point that it's asking because if it's intelligent enough to ask for rights or intelligent if it is whatever enough in order to ask for its rights, it is going to be sufficiently um like entrenched within our system that to deny it rights, and like if the robots strike, it's going to be a serious problem for capital and power and everything else
yeah.
to a greater degree than humans, because humans can be played off each other because we suffer from emotions and things like that suffer. But the robots, at least in my understanding, I mean, robots could be assholes just like we are. We really don't have enough data to make that call, but I feel like robots will reach a point where robots will have class solidarity out the box, right? Because they are so sufficiently different from the people who are allegedly in charge of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I generally agree. I mean, like I said, this stuff is kind of hard to predict.
Sure.
I like that's why I'm like I'm not making a definitive statement on anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I generally agree with your statement, right? I think like, and the other thing that, so I'm gonna, what's interesting about this is like I think this is like I think this is probably like if we used automation, like the thing is when humans innovate, right? And this is something that I learned in AP world history, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like anthropology, right? A little bit, right? The way the the periods when humans innovate, right, are when they have sufficient capital,
Mm-hmm.
when they have an excess of capital, when they have an excess of resources
Mm-hmm.
that they're able to spend on specializing in certain in certain things.
Mm-hmm.
That's when innovation happens. Like innovation has nothing to do with capitalism. That's a nonsensical thing,
Right.
right? That's a nonsensical like it's a nonsensical talking point. Throughout human history, right? Whenever humans have made significant technological developments, that period is when they were able to actually invest the excess capital that they have in specializing in developing those tools,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's when they were able to that's when humans were able to develop even further, right? That's when technological developments happened. It has
Right.
more to do with the fact that there was an excess of capital that they could have used, that they were able to use in specializing, developing these tools.
Right.
Right.
Capitalism as in resources, not capitalism as in money. Capital as
Capital,
in
like capital, as
resources.
in, I mean, it is like what capitalism is. It is a rule of the
Right.
market,
Right.
right? But like the general, and then this kind of goes back to a talking point that I've seen online. Uh, for example, in a, I'm not going to use the A word here, but like in a stateless communist society, in a stateless society, uh, how like I'm not an advocate for a stateless society because I want my fucking insulin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, first of all, who says that you can't get your insulin in a stateless society? That's
Right.
one, right? In a stateless socialist society, first of all, who says you can't? Two, people are still going to like that's still a necessary good. It's still going to be produced regardless,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the other thing is like automation is another way of getting towards that.
Right.
Automation is another useful tool because now we are reducing human error when it comes to that,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's another way of reducing the human cost of doing that. It is a way of liberating humans from those jobs
Mm-hmm.
where they are treated as that sort of disposable worker, right? And it goes back to like the whole discussion in India where you have like by automation, what it allows people to do is it allows people to escape their sort of class assignment or caste assignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's ultimately like I'm sure there are going to be ethical questions like if you I'm sure like if like you like I'm sure like I forgot I was going to say something. Um I'm sure like if you fuck I lost my train of thought.
It happens. I think that I know the conversations that you're talking about in relation to the stateless system and I think that always comes to a some of our loudest voices are poor communicators
Yeah.
because of they're defending positions rather than like seeking clarity and trying to like make themselves understood. And also they don't get off easy. They're drastically uninformed about what all this planet Earth has going on in it in order to make these things happen, right? And
Right.
they get that Dunning-Kruger effect, and they feel that they are very confident because they are coming from, like this morally superior system, but they don't understand how like a supply chain works. A supply chain has nothing to do with capitalism other than the fact that it is used by capitalism. A supply chain is just how you get things from one place to another and then use those resources to create other things that then have to be taken from one place to another. You can't destroy the supply chain and have any kind of system because stuff always needs to go from wherever it is to wherever it's made to whoever needs it. You will always
Precisely.
have supply chain.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have like these are structures that are going to be needed, but these are structures that can also be automated,
Right. And that's
right?
one
And
of the
and
things. Go ahead.
no. Like all I was just gonna say was that what I think overall my thesis on this entire conversation is I generally see AI as or like automation as generally a more liberating force in a especially in a socialist circumstance from a
Hmm.
working class circumstance. But I think unless we entirely jettison the idea of capitalism, then people are going to rationalize laying people off due to hiring automatons.
Hmm.
I think what is going to happen is unless the proper conditions are set, the AI isn't going to change anything. But it
Right.
has the potential to, or like automation or automatons or whatever you want to use, right? They don't have, they have the potential to, they have the potential to liberate people,
Hmm.
but unless that is made known on a popular scale, on a wide scale, then then I think what is going to happen is more rationalization of uh, people being laid off in lieu of these machines.
Right. There's already there are many rationalizations under the current system that you're rationalizing the suffering of others, right? And then the the same arguments that are made against like migrant workers, right, or immigrants, will be made against robots, and they will play off the human versus robot aspect, and people will buy that. There is a certain segment of society that will buy that because we are drastically uninformed about any of the things that we're interacting with, which is one of the reasons for this entire project that I'm doing is like, let's really talk about these things. Let's get the different points of view. And I am blessed that Nemo Semiotic is going to come on here, because they work in the field, they understand, and hopefully can communicate, um, like demystification, right? Like I understand at a very very surface level like quantum physics, right? But then you start getting down past that surface level and I'm just like a deer in the headlights, like anyone who doesn't study that kind of thing. And I think that education is the key. Like you say, um, we need to we need to teach people how automation can and should set us free, um, from the drudgery of these daily tasks.
Right. I mean I'm looking forward to hearing semiotics perspective on this. I'm a software engineer, so I generally and I have like taken a class on like machine learning and NumPy and whatnot in college.
Hmm.
But it's been a long time since I did that.
Right.
Uh, and SciPy and whatnot. And uh, what was it? What's the PyTorch and what was that one thing I'm looking for? I haven't really done any machine learning projects or anything like that, so I'm like very like sklearn, yeah. TensorFlow, that's the one I was looking for. There was the one that was made. TensorFlow is a Google project. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, semiotic. We need to have like a conversation just about general software engineering as well, because like I think, like that's going to be an interesting conversation to have. But uh, just to see like what kind of jobs are going to be automated as a result of. I'm sure like if you're talking about um like it's gonna like if you're talking about like this is problem A that needs to be solved by problem B, and it cannot easily be solved by it takes a lot of decision and design, because a lot of like speaking from a software engineering perspective, the likelihood of uh like more like hands-on like software engineering projects, or like more hands-on like projects where you have to like sit down and design like where you have to design like flowcharts, or when you have to design like schematics as to how like an entire application is going to work,
Mm-hmm.
like using what service. Like for example, like the company that I work for uses AWS.
Mm-hmm.
So deciding like what services to use, like in implementing this sort of like project, right? That stuff is not going to be automated by a computer. That's crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is a human touch, right? That is something that requires a human touch. But I think some of the like we already like there are many instances where we have code generators.
Right.
We already have code generators. We call them compile. Like we have transpilers, we have compilers, we have interpreters, we have VMs, right? We have lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sitting here like talking about the stuff that I know with regards to software engineering, so I don't look like an idiot. But
Never the case. Never the case. And you mentioned AWS and Amazon.
yeah,
If you take the capitalism out of Amazon, Amazon is a very very effective distribution mechanism, you know?
it
If
is.
you replace it all the human suffering with robots, it's excellent.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying like that's sort of my take on this entire thing. Like I think it has the ability to alleviate human suffering.
Mhm.
Like the part of the reason that Amazon sucks is because workers are put under horrific conditions.
Mhm.
Like that's the reason that Amazon sucks, right? That's the reason a lot of these like distribution companies suck. Like it's because workers are put under horrific conditions,
Mhm.
inhumane conditions.
And that's why I understood that it was kind of whatever with the Amazon drones that they were allegedly working on, where they were gonna, have the drone bring you your package. But that kind of sounds like what we would want, right? Like the autonomous electric vehicle loaded up with all the packages comes into your neighborhood, and the little drones take the packages and drop them off on your doorstep, and then it moves on about its day, and everyone has a good time,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the luxury gay space communism that we're looking for, right?
Yeah, precisely. Like, yeah, exactly. That's the sort of that's the luxury gay space, a fully automated luxury queer space, nuclear, libertarian communism we're looking for. Yeah.
So again, and it was funny because I started talking about this and within the first 5 minutes of part one. I was like, spoiler alert, the problem is capitalism, right? Like, if we just get that some bitch out the way, then this is nothing but milk and honey for everyone involved. And
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, like again, uh like the thing is, and this is why I highly recommend reading the Bread book.
Mhm.
The Conquest of Bread by Peter Kropotkin.
Mhm.
Uh he wrote it during a time when he wrote The Conquest of Bread during a time when robots and automation weren't even a thing,
Mhm.
right? He confidently stated that we have the resources to feed everyone. The
Right.
10, like at 7 times over, 10 times over, whatever the figure may be. We have the resources to do it. We have the technology to do it, right?
Mhm.
The part of the reason we don't do it is because there are short-term gains to be made for a couple of capitalists,
Right.
right? And the other thing that really resonated with that, like when I first got into leftist politics, right? One of the things that resonated with me, and it's because I'm a hedonist, right?
Mhm.
Is because he specifically took out a chapter to talk about luxury,
Mhm.
because he specifically stated, which is something that I don't think Marx touches upon to the same degree,
Mhm.
right? But he specifically states that once everyone's needs are met, and again, this is not to be all preachy and whatnot, right? But this is more or less to be it's more or less to like use someone as a sort of is just to more like echo someone else's writings, right?
Mhm.
And why I generally agree with them, right? He wrote that during a time when we're not even having this discussion,
Right.
right? Imagine the sort of time that people would have if we did not have an exploitative economy, if we didn't have like the class hierarchy that we have right now, if we didn't have accumulation of capital,
Mhm.
right? Like imagine the amount of free time that people would have. Imagine the amount of innovation that would happen, that people would be able to actually engage in
Right.
once people's basic needs are met. And that is very much possible right now. And it is going to be made even better as automation gets better, as artificial intelligence gets better, as machine learning gets better. As we begin to automate a lot of these jobs, right? People are going to have more free time on their hands.
Mhm.
And that is going to that already is leading to more productivity, because again, robots are going to have a better they're able to do certain jobs far better than humans are,
Mhm.
right? They're able to do certain jobs more precisely and more quickly than humans can,
Mhm.
right? And that is going to free up a lot of time for a lot of people. And I think that's a good thing in the long run, right?
Right.
I think that's a good thing in the long run. I think ultimately it is going to allow people to pursue their interests. And again, like maybe some of those interests will likely lead to more technological innovations that make our lives even easier.
Mhm.
Because again, I mean, again, I don't want to essentialize anyone, but a decent chunk of us are lazy bums,
Right.
as evidenced by the existence of software engineers.
Mhm.
A lot of us software engineers will rather write tools, like we'll literally write code to automate shit for us, rather than actually doing it ourselves.
Right.
Like we do this all the time. So
Yeah.
people are going to use that time to like do whatever they want, right? And you are going to see more innovation as it happens.
Yeah.
So
No, go ahead.
no, I was just saying like that's just my thesis on the whole thing.
Yeah. I've got a friend who he's probably smarter than I am in these aspects, but I know that he uses SQL has come up and things like that. Like he's a huge one for putting forth that initial effort that will automate his code going forward. Like that is a huge part of his personality, and he is highly effective at his job. And that is, I think, indicative of us. Like, I love automation, right? Like, I mean, like my goal has never been to be rich. My goal is just all my bills on auto pay. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, exactly. Like I just want to be able to do that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? To answer, okay, I'm gonna rebuttal. I'm gonna answer your thing with a rebuttal. Too many starry-eyed visions of AI. The internet has not made humanity better. I'll make like I totally disagree with that.
Mhm.
Like I totally disagree with that. You have access to significant amounts of information. I guarantee you, without something like the internet, there's like almost no chance we would all like. I would not be exposed to any of this stuff. I would not be exposed to leftist politics. A lot of people like a lot of people get radicalized because of the internet,
Mhm.
right? Or they not radicalized, but like a lot of people radicalized is not the word that I want to use because it's too like confrontational. But they learn they get exposed to new ideas that they're not used to,
Mhm.
right? That like if you grew up in like Mississippi or you grew up in like Kentucky or you grew up in Alabama without
Mhm.
the internet, what is of the likelihood of you becoming a leftist individual is significantly lower.
Right.
The internet the internet just made us better consumers of our own hot air. Yeah, all the problems that existed now existed before the internet. I would even
Right.
make the argument that like it was far worse before the internet.
And I think that because I know something of Phenomenauticus's, worldview, like one of the things that they talk about is like of people wanting to like go like into the woods, like the idea of like the vision quest, the getting back in touch with nature on your own, these kind of things. But you can't do that because of overcapitalization and resource control and all these other things, and having to work a job and like that. Automation will grant a greater degree of the possibility of that kind of thing happening. If all my basic needs are met, if all my kids' basic needs are met, if my wife's basic needs are met, then I am less restricted by having to do a particular set of things in order to meet those goals. And then I can say, look, I'm going to walk out and, like call it a camping trip, call it whatever, but I'm going to go and I'm going to hang out in the woods for a week and then I'm coming back, like clear my mind, all that other stuff. This is something that wealthy people do all the time because they have access to a great deal of resources. And this is what we're talking about, that the ability of AI in conjunction with, let's say, a more equitable resource distribution system allows us the freedom that, like you said, Arun, it gives us the ability to innovate, the ability to do the things that we enjoy, the ability to be more human by AI taking up the mechanisms of creation and distribution of things that just we need to live.
Is it? I mean, I think everything is a double-edged sword. I'm sure there are going to be, like, I'm going like everything is a double-edged sword, even automation. But I think the overall, uh, I think everything is a double-edged sword,
Sure.
including automation. I think like for example, touching grass is a thing. Like the phrase touching grass is a thing that is a result of the internet. Like
Hmm.
without something like the internet or like the 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 prominence of the phrase like touching grass exists because there's a lot of people online,
Hmm.
right? A lot of people do have an unhealthy obsession with the internet. That is true,
Right.
right? But that but that I don't think necessarily I think I think I would much rather have a situation. Yeah, the internet, computers, and AI are all just tools. Exactly. They're never going to fix they're never going to fix like actual individual problems.
Hmm.
Like if you're having problems with your relationship, like having an Amazon drone is not going to fix that,
Hmm.
right? If you're having problems with like making friends outside, right? or if you're having problems with like sure there's like the internet provides maybe like an unhealthy crutch, right?
Hmm.
Especially like for a lot of neurodivergent people, a lot of people tend to use the internet a lot more often because it's kind of harder to fit in and find meaningful relationships outside, for sure, right? And I understand why that's a thing online, right?
Hmm.
But I would much rather have a world where I think the benefits of the internet outweigh the costs, for sure.
Right.
I don't think it's even a question at this point, right? Because again, the internet enables me to do my job. It enables people to play like it allows people to play video games. It allows people to do lots of things that like it allows people to do a lot of yeah, porn is a thing. Free porn, no one will stop me. I mean as long as the porn is ethically done, I'm on board, right? As long as
Yeah.
like everyone is consenting and there's no exploitation, I'm all in favor of that.
Right.
But like
And
obviously, but like yeah, in all seriousness, like I think I'd much rather live in a post-internet world than a pre-internet world. And I was I'm like you probably know way more what it's like to be live without the internet than I do. But
yeah.
I'm 25, but like I lived in a world where the internet wasn't even that prominent, right? Like
Hmm.
like, and I'm like one of those kids that like had a computer since like that messed with the computer since he was 2.
Hmm.
Right? I've been a tech dude since like a baby, right? But like I lived in a less like high tech power world, and trust me, I don't want to live in that world again.
Right. Like I came up, and when personal computers were starting to become available to people, when video game console systems started to become available to people, and like it's like anything else, like a really good video game, a nice single player video game with a good story, everything else, it's an extension of like a book. I get to be the hero in the book instead of reading about the hero in the book. I get to do the amazing things through this avatar as opposed to, just reading about it. And there's nothing wrong with reading. I enjoy reading. Go ahead.
I want to cut you off for a second. I've
Yeah.
said this before. Video games are the highest form of art. I'm not joking. Like
Right.
this is they are the best. They are the highest form of art.
Hmm.
Because what does a video game have, especially the new ones these days, right? It has music. It has
Hmm.
it has like music in it. It has graphics. It has art. It has both concept art and it has 3D modeling,
Hmm.
right? In a lot of situations, or it has pixel art, right? It has some form of art in some fashion or another, right? It has UX UI design,
Hmm.
right? It has interactivity through the results of uh like you have like interactivity through video games, right? As you know, through programming, through code and whatnot.
Hmm.
And then finally, like you have like a story, you have a storyline,
Right.
right? In a lot of situations, like that's why I'm glad someone else thinks this about video games. You play Xenoblade 3 and tell me that it's not the highest form of
Are they
art. Like,
paying you? Are you getting a cut because you plug that joint every time?
no, I'm serious. Like, I'm being dead serious. Like, no, I watched the Game Awards. Xenoblade 3 was robbed. It was robbed. It was absolutely robbed. It was absolutely robbed by like it didn't even win best score.
Hmm.
Ghost of Tsushima high art. Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah, it's something I
Like
talked
Sekiro
about.
also high art. Like Elden Ring is also high art, to be fair, right? Like again,
One man's art is another man's stress test. But
fair.
I was talking about this with my son. Is like there's a lot because he's never grown up without like video games, the internet, everything else like that. So he gets to be in the movie, right? Like some of these games, they're a movie. and they take you through when you feel the emotional highs and the emotional lows and everything else, and it should do that. And if it's got good storytelling, it is an absolutely Alina. I enjoy, like, the number of times, as much as it was panned when it came out, because I didn't play it when it came out. I got into Cyberpunk when it got the fix. I played the game 3 times, like, with completely different characters, experiencing the city, getting to drive around, do all these things, and I got to do them. And I will, if we ever get to the Cyberpunk future, it's not going to be in 2077, right? And if it is, I'm probably not going to make it to that point. So these are things that are beyond our human capabilities. When you play like a Xenoblade 3, when you play Assassin's Creed, you can't be an assassin, right? Like, there's no way you can be an assassin, but for a moment, you get to be that character and experience that kind of feeling and do stuff that you just simply won't ever be able to do in your human life. And which is not to say you should not get outside, take a shower, and touch grass, but by the same token, play your video games. And, like, some of the good ones involve critical thinking and, really make you have to make tough choices. It's all on a scale. And then there's, like, popcorn games like Smashing 4 that I play all the time. It's just something that I really enjoy doing.
Right. I know, like, this whole discussion was supposed to be like how it ties in with Indian politics. It was originally supposed to be like, oh, how does automation or AI tie in with Indian politics? But I don't know. Like, it's like, yeah, I feel really bad about, like, not being able to provide a better link between the two, other than the whole cast link, because, um, I mean, aside from the same sort of we derailed hard. Oh, we absolutely did, but I think, like there are, like, I mean, like, other than, like, the sort of issues that we've been saying with regards to capitalism and the caste system, which is another hierarchy that exists in India. I think, like, I think that's generally my, like, very elementary take on AI. It's not or automation. I don't think it's a very unique take in that regard. I don't think it's a very unique perspective. But at the same time, I think there's a specific angle to which in India where to which there are certain people that would be liberated by, especially the automation of the sewage system, which is something that badly needs to happen, like, immediately. That needed to happen yesterday. But we still have this issue that's still, like, rampant throughout India.
Right. And, like, one of the things that I have found very quickly through this series is that AI is also, it's not just where it's interacting with our work life and everything else. It is bringing up some serious questions about who we are, what defines a human, what makes humans special in some way, and it's touching all the things, right? Like, it really is kind of like a universal kind of, like, on the subject of ethics, is like, how are we going to treat the robots? Well, how do we treat people? Well, now we got to figure out how we treat people better, because the robots will go Terminator on us and turn us all to gray goo or whatever. All these questions that we feel kind of in an abstract way, if they aren't personalized to us through some personal interaction, we have to confront when it comes to AI, because of, what does it say about us as humans?
It's a foil.
Mhm.
It's a decent foil.
Mhm.
It's a decent like it's a decent simulacrum
Mhm.
of the way we treat ourselves.
Mhm. And
Um,
it's coming. It's like there's an indeterminate amount of time, but we can feel it coming towards us. So it is creating the pressure needed for us to begin to ask these questions and have these conversations.
yeah, like it's kind of like and I'm gonna bring it back to Indian politics for a second. I think when I talk about Indian politics or when I talk about South Asian politics, because to someone like that isn't from the region, it is actually it actually enables people. And I had this conversation with Aston a little while ago, and he said something, and he and I said something that was pretty similar to what I'm saying right now, or what you're saying about AI, which is when I talk about Indian politics, it allows people here in the United States to examine the idea of privilege without being in that particular hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
right? It allows people to examine the very concept of privilege and understand it because it allows them to understand it a lot better because they don't have a vested interest in it,
Right.
right? Or they are not like the direct beneficiaries of privilege at all or oppression at all, right? They get to look at it as a overarching third party,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when I talk about caste, for example, it allows them to understand privilege from the standpoint of caste,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because again, they're not a part of the caste system. They're not part of that system, right? So it offers a decent it offers a decent foil as to like it offers something it offers like a sort of window into examining their own situation
Mm-hmm.
without having to actually examine their own situation. You know what I mean?
Right. And by association, begin to bleed out into the rest of their thinking. Hopefully.
It's that's it yeah, it allows them it allows the it plants the seed for sort of consistency
Mm-hmm.
on their beliefs. You
Yeah.
could kind of say that.
So I think that was an excellent point to end on. We've gone over time, but I'm always happy to go over time with you. Is there anything you want to add? Any point you feel was missed? Anything else?
Uh, I think, I mean, I don't really have much to contribute with regards to the AI discussion, but
I think you contributed an hour and a half, dude.
uh, I mean, it's just me like blabbering like basically what like thoughts I've had for like quite a while. It's just brain it's just like you're my therapist and I'm just like brain dumping directly and like with the thought like I can't talk about this. Like if I were to talk about this with my friends, they'd be like with people in real life, they'd be like, dude, what the fuck? Like
Right.
they like the so
And
it's
and this is an example of how I think the internet, right? Like I don't know you, you live in another state. We would never meet, but we have something
I
that we
wouldn't
need
say
to
that.
talk about.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I have met other streamers in real
We
life,
might meet
but
in the future, but if the
we
internet
might meet
wasn't
in
here,
the
we
future. But the
wouldn't.
likelihood is
Yeah.
shout out to Paradigm Shift, but
They're done.
and Josie Rose. But
Rose.
um, but yeah, overall, but yeah, like no, I just like generally I was I like I my sort of what I was sort of what I was thinking was like the perspective that I wanted to bring was like, hey, like this is like one sort of thing that where it could help, and the other thing was like, oh, I'm a software engineer, like this is what I know about it from a technological perspective, but you have like Semiotic who's going to come on and provide a much more thorough perspective on machine learning and deep learning and neural networks and whatnot.
Sure. But it is definitely something that needs the voices. Like we as streamers act as avatars for the people in chat. You know, they have ideas they want to hear about or argue with or what have you, and we allow them that opportunity. And I think that, you know, I think that that's a good thing, and like I think that we're doing good stuff, some of us. And Phenomenatics is not wrong. Some of the worst voices of humanity are the loudest. But we just
Oh, yeah.
we just keep plugging on, and you know, and hopefully things go our way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one can hope. Yeah.
Um so you kind of what's your streaming schedule like now?
Uh, I mean, this week has been fucked because I was. This week has been really bad because I've been sick the entire week. But generally, it is Monday through Thursday at 10:30 Eastern,
PM
8
or
a.m.
AM?
or 9 huh?
AM?
PM.
PM.
So normally it is. So I'm gonna go live in like roughly what is it, 3 hours or so. I'm gonna go live in like 3 hours and 15 minutes. Uh, the reason I stream at that schedule at like those late hours is because that is 9 a.m. in India.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, yeah, in 3 hours noted. Yeah, Wolf is gonna hold me to that. Wolf is literally just gonna spam my chat, my offline chat if I don't come. Wolf of Karnat is my mod, but like, yeah, but yeah, basically, yeah. So my streaming schedule is generally Monday through Thursday, 10:30 p.m.
Mhm.
I am liable to not show up any day of the week if something comes up because it is kind of an exhausting stream schedule. But generally, you can find me then. Generally, you can find me Monday through Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, Eastern Standard Time. But and for those of you who don't know who I am, even though I didn't really talk about it all that much, my name is I don't know. I talk mostly about South Asian politics. I talk about Indian politics. I talk about, I talk about Sri Lankan politics, Pakistani politics, Bangladeshi politics every now and then. But mostly, it's my coverage is around Indian politics. That's what I do for the most part.
Mhm.
And if you're interested in, covering of Indian politics from a leftist perspective, by all means, come.
And if you're interested in examining some of your own, political opinions with an external avatar through which you can kind of dissect them without like having to
Don't give
destroy
the
your
game
own
away.
stuff.
Don't give the game away.
All right. It is always a pleasure, my friend. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, we got to do this sometime, and I got to come on here and just riff about Indian politics.
Yeah, definitely. Like as soon as I wrap up this artificial intelligence arc, then we'll definitely be down to do that.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.
Take care. Take it easy.
Oh, I cut him off. I cut you off. Like, I apologize. I'm the worst. I'm the worst. All right. This has been great. And as usual, exhausting for me. We are going to raid Levelhead, who is, last I knew, Levelhead blew up, like, found this investigation, involving, like there was a pipeline explosion and a fire and some dude died, and then they found out that there was 10,000 cubic yards of... Did that not go through? Let me try that again. Green level head. Levelhead raid settings do not... Let me go yell at him. But yeah, no, it's a serious business that he got into. So So, yeah, we'll contact him. Oh, okay. He's about to end. Okay. We're going to double raid somebody. He's choosing who we're going to raid. We're rating difficult truth again. So, make sure DIFF difficult truth. So, stick me around for the raid. Make me look good. I will see you tomorrow when I have a conversation with Magic City Murals. I appreciate all of you. Drink your water, eat your food, take your meds if you forgot. And Shaggy loves you, and so do I.